Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Advice Series webinar, Choosing a Destination, Proactively Managing Your Career as a Mid-Level Associate. I am Emily Roshek, Associate Director of ABA Legal Career Central, a career center that offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Marian Lee. Marian is a coach, author, and consultant on lawyer career development. She practiced as a commercial litigator for 16 years before becoming the first director of professional development at Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, Schreck, a 240-lawyer firm based in Denver. There, she created in-house training programs, a level-based associate advancement process, and programs focused on first-year lawyers, senior associates, and new partners. She also wrote a book on lawyer career development, Building Your Ladder, an associate's guide to success beyond partnership, published by the ABA in 2013. In early 2017, she left her firm and started Career Reinvention, a coaching and consulting practice focused on lawyers. Thank you so much for being here, Marian. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Emily. I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you all for attending. This is my first webcast, so you're going to have to bear with me. It's a little unusual not being able to see the audience or know how things are landing. So please feel free to use the chat box or the question note box on your computer. We're going to talk today about taking charge of your legal career, specifically as an associate in a law firm. 30 years ago, when I started as an associate, you didn't have to do that. Pretty much the career path was straightforward. You do good work for 7 or 8 years, be loyal and dependable, make your billable hours, and you're likely to become a partner. Once you made partner, you were pretty much set. The legal services market has changed drastically since then, particularly after the recession. These changes have impacted our career paths. They've limited some options, but they've also opened up some new ones. The bottom line is, given where we are today, it doesn't serve you well to drift through your career on autopilot and just kind of see what happens. To obtain the best outcome, you need to be proactive and deliberate in choosing the destination you want to head for and taking the steps necessary to get there. In your early years, you may not know what you want your destination to be, and that's normal. But at that point, and we'll talk about this a little bit, you want to preserve as many options as you can for yourself by laying a strong foundation. In this session, we're going to talk about some tools for evaluating your options, identifying the destination that fits you, and designing a career plan to get you there. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of career strategy, it's helpful to have some background on how the legal industry has evolved over the past 30 years. It helps to understand the economic factors that are driving law firm decisions today, as well as the environment that baby boomer lawyers, many of whom are leading law firms today, grew up in. New slide. In the second half of the 20th century, law firm revenues grew exponentially. The billable hour model gave firms huge power to generate revenue once they had a significant base of institutional clients. To increase revenue, firms just had to push their lawyers to bill more hours, and they rewarded them for it. It wasn't necessarily a request to inflate hours or be dishonest, but if, for example, in writing a brief, you could take 10 hours or 20 hours, the firm, at least implicitly, encouraged the lawyer to take 20. There's a lot of discretion in how much time a lawyer can put into a particular project, particularly if there's no limit imposed by the client. You can do a Cadillac job or a Corolla job on a particular project. Why not do the Cadillac job? Firms could also raise billing rates every year. In very few other industries could business get away with this. Every January, law firms pretty much just gave themselves a raise. Efficiency in delivering legal services wasn't valued because actually it hurt the firm's revenue stream. Clients and lawyers were in conflict, with lawyers wanting to take more time for everything and clients wanting them to take less. For the most part, however, clients would pay what they were billed without challenging the time spent, the hourly rates, or the staffing choices the firm made. In the legal service industry, it was a seller's market. Firms were in the driver's seat. What are the implications for associate careers? So at that time, partnership was presumed to be the goal of every associate. The path was pretty straightforward and one size fits all. There was a lot of room for new partners because the firms had the ability to increase revenue pretty easily. The early years of partnership offered a long ramping up period for a new partner to build a practice and develop business. If the partner didn't develop business, that was no problem. They could still remain as a service partner. Once you made partner, you were likely to stay at the firm for your whole career, and there wasn't much lateral partner movement. Beginning in the 1990s, the industry started to see more checks and balances on the ability to bill unlimited hours. Clients became more savvy, and they started scrutinizing their bills a lot more closely. Some even hired auditors to dispute billing entries, particularly for services that were poorly described, redundant, unnecessary, or unauthorized. Now they have, of course, software systems that do that. Many of you probably have firms that use e-billing. The partner ranks became full, and all of a sudden they couldn't hold all the associates who had quote-unquote earned partnership, because up till then, partnership was sort of considered something you earned. If you paid your dues, you were entitled to be a partner. Well, in the 90s, firms couldn't hold all of those people that earned partnership, so a lot of firms created non-equity tiers to retain them so they wouldn't leave, but without really distributing a share of the pie. Mergers and lateral partner acquisitions became more common. Firms would buy a practice to increase the services they could offer their clients and the firm's ability to generate profits. This caused another barrier for making partner, especially equity partner, because lateral partners were hired with these books of business and took equity spots that could have gone to homegrown lawyers that made partner. Despite these factors, though, firms still enjoyed high profitability and demand for legal services continued to grow. And then it changed into a buyer's market. In 2009, everything changed. While the recession had serious effects on markets all over the world, its impact on the legal market was particularly acute. Those of you who graduated around that time know this was a terrible time. The market dried up. There was no work. Corporate counsel were pressured to slash legal budgets, and they rebelled against the established billable hour system. They brought more work in-house. They started to demand efficiency, value, and predictability from their outside counsel. They want to know how much something is going to cost. They requested more alternative fee arrangements like caps, fixed fees, and outcome-based fees or premiums. In the past, lawyers had been known for saying, I can't really estimate what these services will cost. It's way too complicated. I'm not like a construction contractor. But clients started to say, that's tough. Figure it out. You're going to have to learn how to do project management on legal work and figure out how to charge me in a way that adds some degree of predictability. They heavily scrutinized their bills. They looked at staffing on their matters. They demanded deep discounts, and a lot of firms said they wouldn't pay for first-year lawyers' work anymore. They also started outsourcing lower-level work to new types of legal service providers like Axiom, Alt Legal, and the like, for things like document review, legal research, discovery, and document drafting. This movement, plus the overall decline in the economy, brought about a sharp decline in the demand for legal services. So on the next page is a graph that shows the dramatic impact of the recession on the demand for legal services. The graph ends at 2014, but the years since then have continued to show pretty flat demand for legal services. Even in the years where profitability has gone up a bit, those profits have been due primarily to increases in billing rates, not to additional legal work and demand. Most legal industry experts say we're in a new normal, and we can't expect demand to return to pre-recession growth levels anytime soon, if ever. Too many firms are chasing too little work. To the extent, as I mentioned, revenues have increased, it hasn't been because there's more work. So what does this mean for partnership in the new normal? There's less room for partners who don't generate business. Fewer associates are making partner. Proven business generation rather than potential has become a requirement for partnership at many firms, And those who are already partners are under greater scrutiny and more pressure to produce revenue. Service partners are becoming more rare. There's less and less room for them. And firms are creating new categories of lawyers, particularly on non-partnership tracks that meet market demands and cost less. So how do these changes affect associate career strategy? The most important thing is to avoid the student mindset and to shift when you're a junior associate. I made a mistake when I was a junior associate, and I've seen new associates enter the profession with this. They come into the firm thinking of it as though they're still in law school. The partners are like professors who are there to teach them. The assignments are all going to be given equally. They're entitled to be taught and trained, and all they have to do is just do a good work on the assignments that they're given. It's all just about the work product. That's not the case when you join a law firm. You need to avoid this trap by shifting from a mindset of, oh, I'm entitled to be given assignments and be fed work, to one of, I've got my own little business now. The partners are my clients. I want to build client loyalty. I want them to love working with me. You have to earn the work projects, and the same way that your partners have to earn projects from outside clients. The better you are at earning work and building relationships, the richer your assignments will be, the better experience you'll get, the more mentoring you'll receive, and the brighter your career prospects will be. So in order to plan a career strategy, it's important to understand the big picture of how associates add value to a firm at different stages of their career and how that progression relates to your marketability. This table shows how you can effectively build your value, and this is as perceived by your firm at different phases of your career. In your junior years, your goal should be to build your reputation and generate demand for your services among internal clients, particularly at the beginning. You don't have a lot of knowledge or experience to offer as a brand new lawyer, but what you do have that can distinguish you from other associates are gateway attributes. These attributes, such as enthusiasm, initiative, curiosity, responsiveness, and receptivity to feedback, affect how much partners will want to work with you. I had no idea when I was a new associate how important these things were. And every new associate I work with and I coach, I stress this over and over. They're very surprised. They're like, why, isn't it just about the work? If I just do good work, isn't that enough? No, you need to do really, really good work, and you need to show these gateway attributes. People have to enjoy working with you. You got to also remember that at this first early stage, the firm is losing money on you. They're investing in you because they believe, based on your resume and your track record, that you'll become a strong, valuable associate in a few years. You also want to show your dedication to the firm by becoming a great lawyer and staying productive, seeking out work when things are slow to keep your hours up. You also need to learn as much as possible through your work assignments by asking good questions and taking advantage of training opportunities. A high priority is to build relationships through the firm. Good relationships will help you succeed whether at the staff, associate, or partner level. The impressions you create at this stage are going to stay with you, so you want to build a strong, positive personal brand. Then in your mid-level years, your goal should be to gain more sophisticated skills and deeper practice area knowledge. At this stage, the firm is starting to recoup its investment, and you're becoming profitable for the firm. You need to continue building relationships, extend your network within the firm, and also grow relationships outside the firm. You'll maximize your value by understanding the law firm's economics, contributing to profitability by meeting the hours expectations, capturing all your time, turning it in promptly, and gaining efficiency so partners don't have to write off much, if any, of your billable time. It's also a good idea to start getting involved in outside organizations like bar and industry associations. And then in your senior associate years, in the third column, you add the most value by maintaining high productivity, running matters independently, increasing your involvement in the firm and community, developing junior lawyers, and continuing to build relationships. Visibility is really important if you want to be considered for partnership. Staying in your office with your head down, closing the door is not going to serve you well. You need to have accomplishments, and you need to make them known to the key people in the firm. Next slide. Here's a graph that shows in a very rough way how an associate's marketability and value expand over time and then decrease. By marketability, I mean your appeal to other firms if you wanted to go change jobs and work at another law firm. Your marketability is, how many options can you likely generate for yourself because of your value and your capabilities. It's closely tied to your value to the law firm, but there are some small differences. So let's focus on your junior years, years 0 to 3. In those years, your value lies in the ability, and again, this is from the firm's perspective, to provide base level services like research, writing, and analysis at modest billing rates. Although clients sometimes balk at paying for brand new lawyers' work, after the first year, they expect to pay very low associate rates for these base level services. At this point, your value to the firm slightly exceeds your value to the outside firms because they've invested in you and they want to keep you until you become profitable. In your mid-level years, again staying on this same graph, you're nearing the height of your value to the firm. You can perform more sophisticated work, you don't need as much supervision, demand for your work increases, clients perceive you as a good value because while your skills are getting pretty strong, your work is still charged at very reasonable rates. You reach and exceed the firm's break-even point and you become profitable for the firm. As you gain experience and clients get to know you, they're comfortable paying your increasing rates. In this phase, your marketability is at its peak. You've acquired valuable skills and expertise, so a firm that hires you doesn't need to invest much in training you. Yet, you're still junior enough so that if they have specialized practice areas, you can learn new things. Your pay is well below partner salary. Your billing rate is one that the firm's clients will be happy to pay, so you'll be profitable for a new firm. You won't require a partnership consideration for several years, so they won't be under pressure to make a decision or potentially put you in line ahead of their own associates that are already there. You're very marketable in these mid-level years. Then as a senior associate, it's a little more complicated. In years 6 through 8, and again, these are all generalizations, so obviously there can be exceptions, but in years 6 through 8, you're highly valuable. You have substantial experience and you can run matters with little or no supervision. This level of competence justifies the highest associate billing rates, and you're at the peak for generating revenue as an associate. Clients and partners feel your services are a good value because you perform almost like a partner, but you cost less. Starting in year 8, however, your value may decline as keeping your pipeline full becomes more challenging. The amount of work you get will depend on who you have to compete with, and you're going to be competing with junior partners and 6 to 7 year associates, senior associates. So it's going to depend on who you're competing with and how your partnership potential is perceived. A senior associate who is a promising candidate will be given more opportunities and compete more favorably for work with newer partners as the firm continues to invest in you. A senior associate who's not as promising is going to have more trouble finding work. Your marketability at this stage is declining. Although the associate has strong expertise at this stage, they want a high salary, and the hiring firm must be careful. They don't want somebody who's just on the verge of wanting to be considered for partnership. Most new firms will want a 2 to 4 year look before considering someone for partnership. So you can still make a move at this stage. It definitely does happen at times, but just know you're probably going to set yourself back in terms of partnership year if you decide to do that. And that would be normal and to be expected. So what does this all mean for career planning purposes? It means mid-level is the time to assess where you are and what you have to offer and where you want to go. Your marketability is at its peak, and you're never going to have more choices than you do at that point. So now, having that backdrop in mind, let's assume you've built your value and you're a mid-level associate at the peak of marketability. This is the time to evaluate your options and make a plan. Even if you're at a more senior stage, I encourage you to take charge of your career development wherever you are and make a plan. Don't wait for the firm to tell you what your options are. Unfortunately, firms are notorious for not talking frankly with their associates about their prospects for partnership in a timely manner, even though they typically have a pretty good idea 2 to 3 years out at least. This is especially true if the associate's prospects are iffy, but the associate's highly profitable. So as a side note, this presentation was adapted from one that I gave a few months ago to law firms and professional development representatives at law firms about saying, you know, help your associates take charge of their careers, and meet with your associates and give them coaching at this mid-level point and tell them where they stand. That's my message to law firms is don't lead people on. Be honest with them, help them plan their career, whichever way they're going to go, and you'll have a better firm, you'll have happier associates, you'll have happier alums if they end up leaving. We often forget that in the classic model, associate is not a permanent position. It's a multi-year period during which a firm benefits from your services, but also assesses your potential as a partner. So how attainable is partnership? That's the first issue you want to consider. Is partnership a viable option for you? The key is to gather as much information as you can in order to assess your chances. Some of this information is going to be hard to get, so it's an imperfect process. All you can do is gather what you can and tap into your network. So first, you're going to want to identify your firm's partnership criteria. Some firms have written criteria. Great, get a copy of those. A lot of firms don't have it in a document. If that's the case, then you're going to have to ask your firm and practice group leaders, what do they look at? What are the factors that matter? Even if there is a document, you're going to want to talk to leaders in the firm about how the criteria are applied in real life and what that looks like. The second thing you're going to want to do is find out how the process works. At what point are associates considered? What year? Is there an application process, or is consideration automatic? Who decides? Is it a managing partner, department chair, practice group leader, or a committee? These things are important to know in figuring out how it's going to work for you and what it might look like. Third, you need to get a sense of how you're perceived in the firm. Take a look at your recent evaluations. Seek current practice group leader feedback on your strengths and challenges. Ask them, if you were being considered today, what hurdles would you face? This is why you want to do this at least 3 years before consideration, if in the perfect world, so that if there are areas you need to shore up, you still have time to address them. Next, find out as much as you can about recent partnership promotions. Who made it, who didn't, and why. Although this is going to be anecdotal, obviously it's all very confidential, it's still going to be helpful if you can get some idea of what people think happened. If you've been at the firm a while, you should be saving emails every year that announce the new partners and kind of keep track yourself. It doesn't tell you why people made it or why they didn't, but you can start to see a pattern many times if you see who the people are that made it. Next, evaluate the status of your practice group within the firm. This is a factor that frustrates associates most. Sometimes this is totally outside of your control, but unfortunately it does affect partnership decisions. Is your practice group busy? Is it in high demand? You may not know how profitable it is, maybe those numbers aren't published, but you can generally tell if they're firing on all cylinders and doing really well. How many others are up for partnership, particularly within your practice area? How many partners has your practice group made in recent years? Has it been a while, or is there a glut of new partners? In a rare case, and typically you wouldn't do this late in your career, but in a rare case, you might want to consider changing practice areas if there's one that's related to yours and wouldn't be drastically different. If you're in a really weak practice group, it's going to be really hard to make partner. Chances are if you transfer, you'll take longer, but it may improve your opportunities overall in the long run. So next, let's talk about typical partnership criteria. Obviously, every firm has its own criteria, but generally there's some variation of the kinds of things that are listed on this slide. All of these criteria, I have to tell you, are not created equal. Know that business development is usually a heavily weighted factor. You're going to want to look at quality of work, productivity, developing others, contributions to the firm, leadership skills. Can you get people on board to accomplish a goal on a team or a committee? And management abilities. Can you stay on top of administrative requirements and keep track of time and review your pro forma is timely. Following the firm's rules can be really helpful. These are the kinds of things that they look at for promoting partners, and you're going to want to assess yourself against these areas. Next slide. Another way to see how you match up is to think about the 4 categories of lawyer contributions to a firm. These are old classics, and they're not perfect descriptions, but you may have heard the terms finder, minder, binder, and grinder. This is a way to make contributions to the firm. In reality, nobody can be just one of these things. Everyone has a combination of these skills, but most of us are not equally strong in all areas. So obviously the finders are the ones who bring in work. If you aren't willing or can't contribute to developing business in some way, now that doesn't mean you have to be the world's biggest rainmaker, but if you can't contribute in some way, you're in trouble. The other categories can complement this skill set, but they will not make up for a lack of it at most firms. Minders add value and profitability through sound management practices, minding the firm's business and their own practice effectively. They bill, they collect, they choose good quality, solid clients. Binders add an intangible but valuable skill set to the mix. Their affinity for relationships often helps them to be good finders as well. There's usually an overlap here. But they also can bind existing clients to the firm. They also help by leading teams and committees effectively and helping to really earn loyalty of other employees to the firm. And finally, grinders are the ones who obviously do the work. All partners have to contribute and be grinders to some extent. This expectation is a given, though. It's not a signature attribute at the partner level. If this is your only contribution, it won't be enough. So let's take a look at the long term. As you consider both the desirability and the attainability of partnership, think about what that trajectory is likely to look like. So at this graph, the left mountain, so there's like a small mountain and a big one. The left one is a compressed version of the associate one that I showed you. The right one is the post-partner phase. So generally, here's what it looks like. As a new partner, you fall into a chasm, that low point. Your profitability is decreasing as your salary increases. Your billable rate has increased, but your hours are likely to decrease. Demand for your services drops as senior partners are less eager to staff you as a second partner on a matter of theirs. At the same time, it's not likely that you're generating a substantial amount of external business yet. At this stage, the firm is essentially making a leap of faith, betting that you will be able to climb out of that chasm in a few years and reach even higher levels of profitability later. Your marketability is low at this time for similar reasons. As a partner, unless you have a very highly specialized level of expertise or type of expertise, you're only marketable if you have a book of business. And this usually takes several years to develop. Firms know that. So we're going to go through these different phases of the partner half here. As a 2 to 5 year partner, your value is increasing with experience, higher billing rates, and increased demand for your expertise. You also add value to the firm by training, mentoring, running committees, and making other contributions. Then, as a 5 to 10 year partner, your value is increasing rapidly. You're starting to see the fruits of your long years of relationship building. These are typically years of high productivity and motivation. So when we talk about how important it is to develop business, I always talk to associates just beginning their careers about building relationships. So business development doesn't mean you have to bring in big clients as an associate. It does mean you need to build relationships and lay the groundwork so that later, after 10 or 12 years, you're going to start to see business coming in as a result of that. It's a long-term process. So then as a 10 to 15 year partner, you're reaching your peak of profitability. Your book of business is continuing to increase as your contemporaries are taking leadership positions in companies and firms, and they're referring work to you on a regular basis. Your expertise is becoming distinguished in your field, and you're an experienced leader and manager. Your marketability is high as well for the same reasons. Other firms may want to buy your practice and hire you. As a 15 to 20 year partner, your value is still very high, but profitability may slightly decrease as your compensation starts to catch up with your stellar performance. You generate work, you keep others busy, and you're able to lead a practice group. Marketability remains high, but starts to decline slightly towards the end of this, the more years out you are. 20 to 30 years, value is declining as comp continues to increase. Business development tends to decrease slightly. Productivity is likely to slow down a bit, and your marketability follows a similar pattern for the same reasons. And then at 20, 30 plus years, your value is usually lower due to higher compensation, lower productivity. Most people slow down at this stage. They want to, they've earned it. Typically, they've slowed down, but if they've maintained their client base and transferred their work to junior partners, their value is increased. Those who are willing to pass on their practice are often rewarded. So the key to all of this, looking at this overall career profile, is when you're at this senior associate stage and you're deciding where you want to go, can you jump the gap successfully? Can you regain upward momentum after partnership? If not, you may be stuck in the gully down there. Too many times I saw over the years people be promoted to partnership who really weren't qualified, and it wasn't doing them a favor because they could not get out of that gully. For 3 or 4 or 5 years, they'd stay down there. They couldn't generate work. They couldn't get demand internally for their work, and they were asked to leave the firm. So my advice is, think hard about whether you want to go into partnership and be prepared to jump the gully, because there will be one, and that's normal. The next step in the analysis is to consider whether, even if you meet the criteria, you even want to be a partner. So everybody knows the pros. Usually there's a salary increase, some semblance of job security, affirmation, status, most of all, just not having to worry about making partner anymore. But think about the costs as well, both financial and in terms of time. Though the rewards can be high, your schedule is only going to get more demanding. Talk with your mentors and trusted advisors. Most of all, talk with newer partners about their experiences. So on this slide, I've listed some of the financial implications. Again, if you're entering an equity partnership, you'll have a buy-in. Often you'll have to pay your own insurance. There can be tax consequences. You can have an uneven salary flow. Are you ready for that? Can you, sustain several months over the year where your salary is lower and then get most of your compensation at the end of the year? And assess your firm. Is there any chance of it going under? How viable is it? The other part is the time commitment. You're going to have to keep billing hours. You're going to have to provide service to the firm. You're going to have to do a lot of administrative management, reviewing bills, those kinds of things. And you're going to always have business development out there, something you need to do. So at the bottom, I cited a recent article. It's very timely for purposes of our talk today. It's called The Cost of Making Partner and How Senior Associates Should Prepare. So it just kind of lists and elaborates on some of these factors and gives you some things to think about. So after you've taken stock, make an informed decision about where you stand. So think about where you fit in one of these categories. A, you want partnership and you're well equipped. If that's the case, consider seeking some coaching or mentoring to focus on higher level partner skills. You're ahead of the game. You don't have remedial work to do. All you want to do is get yourself a head start on being a strong partner. B, you might want partnership but need development to get there. In that case, seek coaching to shore up any areas that need development. Again, this can be coaching or mentoring within your firm. Once you've isolated the areas that in your evaluations, partners have said they need a little bit more of this, that will help guide you in where to develop and focus. You might fall under C, where you wanted partnership, but it doesn't appear realistic to attain, or D, you just don't want it. In case C or D, the process that you're going to go through will involve exploring options within or outside the firm. So next, we're going to talk about building an action plan. After you've decided on a direction, develop a plan to achieve your goals. Typically, it's going to be one of 3 types. It's going to either be a development plan. This would be something for your use that you can share with a mentor. It's about how to grow in a particular area. Or it might be a proposal to the firm. You might submit this to your firm for approval, asking them to accept you in some alternative path, alternative role. Or it may be a transition plan. This would be your own private plan, outlining the steps that you want to take to move forward and get to the goal that you want to reach. So first we have sort of a sample development plan. There is no one right way to do this. This is just one example of what it could look like. But you want to outline the areas in which you want to develop, set specific goals. I want to, meet 5 new people every, within every month from now on. It should also say what the action steps are going to be for getting there, how you're going to do it, and by when. Set a deadline for yourself. The biggest areas where people usually need to work are things like relationship development, communication, leadership, and management skills. So the second kind of plan is a proposal to the firm. This is going to require a lot of research. So depends on what you want to propose. Do you want to propose a contract position or being a staff attorney? Obviously, you're going to research precedent and policies and history within the firm. Does the firm have a policy for doing that? If so, obviously you want to get that and follow the steps that it requires you to take to ask for that kind of position. You're going to want to talk to stakeholders, your practice group leaders, the people that you work for frequently. Talk to them about how they would react to the idea. You want to talk with prior participants who've made similar proposals, if you know of any. And then you're going to want to do external research. What have other firms done? Have they created these kinds of positions? What are the pros and cons? This information will be important. What we found over the years is that showing that other firms are doing something, whether it's creating a staff attorney position or whatever it is, doesn't guarantee that your firm will automatically do it. But if no other firms have done it, it's going to be a harder sell. So it's going to help you if you can show that some other firms are doing what you're proposing. Next, you're going to want to identify obstacles and advantages, assess the viability of a proposal, identify obstacles, and prepare to address them. So think about, okay, they're going to be mad. The common one is on a part-time proposal, say. Obstacles are, well, they had somebody before who was part-time and she wouldn't be available to clients on Fridays, and it was a huge, huge mess. So you're going to say, well, in my proposal, I know that in the past this has been an issue, but I'm going to address that by always being available on Fridays and being flexible about the days that I take off, whatever it is. But you're going to want to think about their objections in advance. You're going to also want to be able to identify what are the benefits to the firm from this proposal. And a lot of times, if you're going to an alternative position, it's great because it lets the firm offer you at a lower billing rate. Yes, you have to probably sacrifice some salary to do it, no question. But it also could make you more marketable to clients because more and more they're being pressured on price and they want to find low-cost ways to provide legal services. So last, you're going to just think about timeline, strategy, and the outline of the proposal in your plan. So the third kind of proposal is a transition plan. If you're going to propose this, you want to if you're going to consider this, you want to identify the elements of your desired career outcome. You might consider taking a personality or work style assessment to kind of figure out what would really fit me better. What are my options? What kinds of things are out there that I might not have thought of? You're going to want to gather information. What options might fit you best? You might want to go to another firm. If it's another firm, is it going to be bigger, same size, smaller? You can investigate the pros and cons of that. Solo practice might be an option for some people. In-house work obviously can be great in terms of not having to generate business, not having to keep track of your time. The only caveat that I always tell my clients when going in-house is sometimes it can be tough to go back to a firm after being in-house. So if you make that move, kind of consider that you're probably not going to go back to a firm. It's not impossible, but it can be hard. Similarly with government work. Government government agencies, state and federal, can have lots and lots of legal opportunities. There can be great benefits. There can be all kinds of good perks to that, good schedules. It may be a good outcome for your particular profile. And then increasingly popular are nonprofit organizations. Those can be great places to work and provide some meaning in your life. So you're going to want to look at those options and maybe pick 3 or 4 that appeal to you the most, and then analyze the pros and cons. You know, what's the good and the bad about each of these, and which one do I want to pursue? And once you've outlined that, you know, you're going to want to outline some steps for how am I going to go find that position? How am I going to market myself? And there's all kinds of great articles and literature out there on that. So whichever kind of plan you've made, once it's established, a coach can support you in working the action plan and holding you accountable. Coaching sessions involve checking in on progress, accountability for completion of action items, discussion and identification of obstacles. What's going to get in the way of trying to do this? And then setting action items for the next session. You can also ask a mentor to serve this role if you have a well-established, trusting relationship with them. Obviously, if it's a transition plan, it's very, very sensitive, and it's unlikely you'll do that with a mentor in your current firm. But if that's what you need, an outside coach may be the way to go. The other thing to consider is in working the plan, for the first 2 types of plans, many firms offer coaching, so ask your professional development or HR department if the firm hires coaches for lawyers, and see if you can avail yourself of this resource. If they don't, you can hire a coach on your own, and many lawyers do. They just say, I don't want to go through the firm, I just want to hire somebody on my own to work with me. Typically, they'll do a 3 or 6 month engagement and really just help keep you focused on your goals and help you think of things you might not have thought of without some external prodding. So you're going to want to set deadlines for reaching your milestones and calendar reminders to assess your progress. It's always easy when we make a plan, we kind of, okay, we made the plan, that's great, and then we forget to follow up. So I always recommend you put a calendar entry at certain time points, just reminding you, hey, check in on your plan, have you done the steps yet? What needs to be done before next week, what needs to be done before next month, so that you can keep yourself accountable as well. So in conclusion, in today's environment, partnership is not an automatic choice. It's harder to achieve and maintain than ever before. Again, even partners who've been at firms for years are being scrutinized for profitability and sometimes being asked to leave. At the same time, new career possibilities may be available that didn't exist 20 years ago. You can increase the likelihood of a satisfying outcome by taking charge, educating yourself, evaluating your options, and choosing a direction sooner rather than later. If you take nothing else from this program, it's that you have the power to decide where you go. Don't leave that up to someone else. Thank you very much. We do have a question. What are the other options like? For people who've always been in firms, what are the differences working in-house? So what people have reported is that going in-house, again, different in-house positions can vary widely, right? Each company assigns different duties to their in-house counsel and structures their legal department differently. But generally, people really enjoy that. You have one client, you get to know them really, really well. You know what their needs are. You learn what their business really entails and how you can help support the business. And so it's really delving into one client. It's also, as I said, administratively can be very nice not to have to bill hours, not to have to constantly keep track of your time and feel like you have to meet a certain threshold. Now that's not to say you're not going to be busy. A lot of in-house counsels work very hard and a lot of hours and just as hard as law firm lawyers, although there can be variations. So there's no guarantee about the workload. It depends on the individual place. But not keeping track of time is a really big benefit for a lot of people. The other issue, of course, maybe the biggest one, is that you don't have to develop clients. And that can be one of the most stressful pieces of being a law firm partner. And it's, as I said, becoming more and more important. People don't have to be the world's biggest rainmaker, but it does take effort and time and cultivation and getting out there. And some people really just don't want to spend that time and don't want to do those activities or have that pressure. So if you really, really don't like business development, in-house can be a great option. Let's see what other questions we have. How should an associate approach partnership options when the timeline is closer to 10 to 12 years and not 7 to 8? It can be really hard. Yes, you would stretch that. You would stretch that out. You have, frankly, a longer period of time where you might still be marketable. But the hardest thing, the biggest thing is to start far enough ahead, at least 3 years before consideration, so that if you discover there's a hurdle you need to overcome, you have time to work on that, if that's the direction you want to go. A lot of people, too, have a hard time determining what it takes to make partner at a given firm. You know, it's unfortunate that some firms are pretty transparent about it, and they'll just come out there and say it's 8 years, whatever, and other firms are more wiggly about it. And the best thing that you can do is talk to your firm leaders, talk to a mentor that you trust, and just say, what does it usually look like? It can be really hard to get this information. It's also been controversial, surprisingly to me, but over the years, that some firms don't want to publish partnership criteria. They don't want to write it down because they're afraid then if somebody comes along and they can say they've met all these, then they have to make them a partner, and it hurts their flexibility. I think a lot of firms have overcome that now, so it's becoming more common to put them in writing, but unfortunately, there's still a fair number of firms that don't put it in writing. So again, it's having those mentors to go to and ask that's going to be the most helpful thing that you can do. So another question, if you're thinking about transitioning to a new firm and you know you don't want to be a partner, especially if that firm knows that partnership is difficult, does it make sense to discuss this while interviewing? Or does that connote a sense that you're not committed? That's a great question. In years gone by, you know, when you were interviewing at a firm, it was always the advice to say you wanted to make partner, whether you did or didn't. You just wouldn't even admit that it was a possibility that you might not desire that. You know, that was their way of telling that you were committed and it really mattered. So, you know, in the early years, that's probably still good advice because you can always decide either way later on. But when you're as senior as the person asking this question, if you're, you know, very senior out and you know you don't want to be a partner and you're thinking of moving, I would discuss this at the time of the interviews. It's like if, you know, if that bothers them, well, then, you know, it's not a good firm for you. But in some cases, that might actually be a relief to them. They might say, oh, great, we don't have to make you partner. What are the options? How can we make you profitable and use you for our clients in a way that makes sense, you know, for you, gives you a good salary, but also makes you reasonably priced for our clients and gives you some predictability about what's expected of you and what's required to keep your job. So sometimes bringing up that subject may actually be a relief to the firm that you're going to if you're a very senior associate and they need help at that level. So another question, if you worked for a firm but then you left to work at a startup company, what options do you have in the legal world? Kind of depends on how long you worked for a firm. If it was, you know, beyond that 3 to 4 year period, you know, you probably have some pretty solid skills and you probably have some similar options to what any other mid-level would have. The thing is, some of your startup company years, and again, I don't know if it's 2 years or 8 years, but some of those years may not count if you want to go back to a firm. You know, they may treat you as a 5th year, they may treat you as a 6th year. It's going to be unclear and very, you know, fact specific how much credit they'll give you for your years out. But just in terms of experience, you can market yourself as, you know, I have all the strengths of a standard mid-level associate, plus the insights that working for a company does. I understand business. I understand clients' business needs and their concerns. You know, that's one of the biggest complaints about that clients have today, is saying my lawyers don't take the time to understand my business. So somebody who has good, solid business experience can be really valuable in a law firm if they market that. And then another question, at what stage are you most marketable from moving to in-house? Does it differ from marketability for moving to another firm? I would say it's pretty similar, although your marketability for going in-house probably extends longer. So, you know, they probably, again, different companies look for different things and have different sizes of legal departments. A lot of in-house counsel really want somebody at least 5-6 years out or more. Usually they don't want, you know, 2 or 3 year lawyers. Again, there can be exceptions, but usually the more experienced you are, the better. And unlike for a firm where the demand kind of tends to drop off after year 8 or 9, you can pretty much reach out for in-house at any time. And the more senior you are, the more experience you have, may make you even more marketable. Are there any more questions that anybody would like to ask before we wrap up here? It's been really a pleasure talking with you today. Again, it's strange for me because I don't get to see you all and be in the same room, but I really appreciate your attending and asking questions, and hope some of this was helpful. Oh, we do have one more question. What are the most effective recruitment tools for in-house positions, both for private companies and nonprofit entities like educational institutions and nonprofits? So effective recruitment tools, maybe somebody could reframe that, but in-house positions, places to look for those are on the ACC website, the Association of Corporate Counsel. They have a great job board that advertises in-house positions. And then obviously, you know, more and more places are using LinkedIn. So that can be a good way. And it's interesting, some law firms even facilitate placing their associates in-house. If they know that the associate really isn't going to be a partner, they will help facilitate placing them with a client. So sometimes that's an option to explore. And then it's a great situation to be in, because you get in-house and then sometimes you get to continue the relationship with your old firm, except, you know, they're the ones that have to kind of sell to you. So it's kind of a nice situation. And obviously if they're a client of the firm that you've worked with, you've got a head start because you understand what their work is like and know something about their business. Educational institutions and nonprofits, more and more are also advertising on LinkedIn. Educational institutions usually also have a good website for careers that you can go to. So if you pick a particular university that you might be interested in, or law school, you know, you can go on their website and there'll be a jobs board just for that company or for that institution.
All right, well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, so I just want to thank Marian very much for providing us some great proactive tips on how to be proactive in our careers. And I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Also, I wanted to share with you some upcoming programs in this career advice series. We have one on legal technology and innovation, a framework and skills for success. We also have one on keeping up with LinkedIn, some of their new features coming up in December. And then in our other webinar series, we are exploring health law in the end of this month. And you can also connect with us on social media, and you can check out our board on our About page. I just want to thank everyone again for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great day.